Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. I'm excited to have on the show today one of my dear friends from the meetings industry, Jim Spellos. His company, Meeting You, has provided technology training for over 20 years. He taught at New York University for 25 years and now spends his free time volunteering for organizations that help fight hunger, as well as helping people understand the benefits of a plant-based lifestyle. Hi, Jim.
All great. Hi, Tracy. How are you? So good to see you.
Likewise. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I mean, it's Veganary month. So it's awareness
so it's
about
appropriate for me to be here, right?
Yes, it's totally. That's why I booked you for January. Yes.
Perfect.
So Veganary is to promote the vegan lifestyle, plant-based lifestyle, so people can understand what it means, and I guess probably to push it more people to do it. But I want to talk to you about your plant-based lifestyle, and how that came to be.
Well, the journey is a long one, but let's take it in a couple of pieces. First of all, you knew me when I was 282 pounds. And although my wife still
the other day, and I don't remember you being that heavy, but
everybody said that, because I'm not anymore, but I wasn't healthy. I'd gone to the doctor, cholesterol was high, LDL was high, runaway blood pressure. So one day, it was, not that I remember it, June 14, 2014, but I'm in an airport in Vegas going from one conference to another. And I was just tired of the crummy stuff that was at the airport to eat. So I was on my phone. I was reading an article. I saw this review for a book called Vegan Before 6. And my wife had mentioned it to me a year or two before. The author was Mark Bittman. And, that day, that moment, it resonated. I go, great, I got to make a change. Texted my wife. She said she's all in. So we start the journey. And lost weight and got down about 50 pounds and fluctuated a bit, but it was pretty good. But we were eating, 2 meals a day vegan, or I should say whole food plant-based. We'll get into those distinctions later. And then December 2016, I had a stroke and lost the right side of my body while I was driving. And we won't get into that conversation.
Wow.
But when you're lying in the ICU, wondering whether you'll move the right side of your body again, you start to make some pretty interesting observations. And one was, the fact that I had changed my diet probably saved my life. And we started to commit to it more and more. Fast forward a year later, my cardiologist goes, "You're doing great and everything's good," but I had a little chest pain, and that became almost complete blockage on both sides of my heart. So back into procedure for a couple of stents. And at that point, which was March 2018, the commitment was full. We go, you know what? This is obviously, if I'm going to be here for a while, it's going to be because of how we eat and the lifestyle. And it became clear, not from the noise, but from the science and the anecdotal, but from all the data that's out there, that eating this way is going to give me and everyone the best chance of a healthy lifestyle, extending your life. They talk about blue zones and being able to find places where people live the longest lives. And, there's so many myths and untruths. I won't call them lies. I'll call them untruths that are out there about eating. But what's amazing to us, because Tracy, we've spent so much time in our industry, in the hospitality industry, is that you would think an industry focused on food would understand nuances such as this, or dealing with celiac and other issues that you deal with all the time. And they don't. And the last couple of events before the lockdown, I remember going and really becomes a struggle to figure out and find what you're going to eat, especially at receptions and events. Oftentimes when you start to talk to the food staff, they understand it and they go, oh, okay, we can do that. But that's not a commitment. That's not a priority. And I got to tell you, no matter what you believe about other stuff, if you're not eating primarily from plants, and Michael Pollan said it best in his book, he said, it's very simple. Eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. That's a healthy lifestyle. And we know that the hospitality industry is part of excess. And I love that excess. I mean, that's how I got as heavy as I did. The food tasted great. It just didn't do me well. So we made the change. We are so thriving. We still consider ourselves foodies in a huge way, but the foods that we're eating right now are ones that support us being able to grow old, healthy, and happy, and not with all the different diseases and issues and not having a recurrence of a stroke or a heart issue and all that stuff. So it can work. Question really is for a lot of folks, the how-to. And so our journey was a gradual one, which really is the long answer for a very simple question, that we didn't just jump in full barrel overnight. We all, we looked at it in stages, and then I got motivations to kick to the next level, shall we say.
Yes, you did. And I'm glad. And I want you here for the long haul, because I love talking to you and I love seeing you when we can see each other in person. But this will work for now. And I know stories of people who I've been told stories of people who have been on bags of medicine, like a Ziploc gallon bag of medicine. And because their spouse or somebody had a heart attack for the same reasons, and they went vegan that way, that person also dropped all of the medication that they had to take. And it just shows that food is medicine.
It is. Food is medicine. I wish I could be in that group, but because of the stroke and because of issues with my blood pressure, even though it's dropped tremendously, I still have to be on stuff. Now, my cardiologist and I have had conversations about this, and he wants me still on the statin, even though he looks at my LDL, which last blood test a few months ago was 37. By the way, if you don't know those numbers, you got to know that is really, really low. There's no fat hanging around my blood anymore. It's still hanging around my middle section. That's another conversation. But the bottom line is that I have to be on some of it just because of what's happened and his conservatism toward this. And I'm okay with it to some extent, even though I hate it. And I hate having to take that stuff because I do feel it. It does impact me. Yet with that said, I do know so many people who have gone plant-based, who've been able to get off most, if not all, of their medications. They've reversed diabetes. They've reversed heart disease. All this stuff is out there. And it is amazing. So, when people do it properly, and done in a way that they're talking to the medical staff, talking to the doctors, making sure they're aware of this, it becomes an incredibly powerful tool. In fact, organization for whom I'm doing a lot of volunteer work right now, Plant Powered Metro New York, is in the middle right now of what's called a Jumpstart, which is designed, at least this one, for healthcare professionals, and is about helping them in a 14-day period transition into a whole food plant-based lifestyle. So doing stuff like that, in addition to what I do all the time, which is teach technology, being able to support that really is where I want to go for the next, 10, 15 years. Maybe I'll keep doing this till I'm 80. I don't know. I'm having too much fun to say I'm going to give it up at this point.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it was what was it?
Plant-powered Metro New York. There are so many good organizations out there. We obviously focus on the New York area. There's the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, who is amazing. There's Nutrition Facts and Michael Greger, who's written the books How Not to Die and How Not to Diet, stuff like that. But there are resources out there. Just you got to separate the noise from the nuance. Right. And the nuance is where the value is. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. In last week's guest, Michelle Payne, we were talking about food bullying, and there are a lot of terminology out there. Cage-free and vegan and gluten. And GMO and non-GMO, and it's very, very confusing. And you really have to, based on and you can get bullied from every side of that. And and I was telling you before we got on the show is that I have people that are scared to tell me what they ate. Like I'm going to judge them like, oh my God, I ate a Twinkie or whatever. I don't even know if Twinkies are made anymore, but
They are.
oh my God, Tracy, she's going to judge me for that. I'm like, my whole point of Thrive and eating at a meeting and every meal matters is that I don't want you to be excluded from that food and beverage experience.
Right.
I want to do what you can eat.
Food is culture. Food is our history. Food is our family. Part of the issue, and I was talking to some folks last night at a gathering of the plant-powered team, and there were some new folks there, and they were talking about how uncomfortable it was over the holidays because they are Italian, but all their family was talking about these rich cheeses and this and that. And I know this year for the first time, I made a Greek dish for Christmas that was veganized, that was plant-based. And you know what? It was really good. It wasn't great. It wasn't what I remembered, but we have to make the decisions for our health. But you're so right about the bullying. And it happens in the whole food community because you get in there and all of a sudden you find out there are different segments. There are different areas. There are the folks who are vegan. There are the folks who say, no, whole food plant-based. There's SOS, the salt, oil, and sugar-free. And you start scratching your head going, no wonder people are confused. We can't get a message out there that's consistent. Yet I think every piece of movement toward the Michael Pollan statement of eat mostly plants is a healthy one for people, and that's one of those approaches that in our industry, if a buffet ever comes back, and hopefully post-COVID it will some point, or at a meal, to be able to provide a non-animal product alternative, the same way you'll provide a kosher alternative, the same way you might provide one for celiac or for people who have other issues or low salt. It just needs to be part of that conversation entirely. Yeah. And I don't think our industry gets it yet. I really don't think that our industry. There was a story, and I know we've talked about it before, and I'm going to share it now. When I first started my journey, it was 2015. It was at an MPI conference. It was in San Francisco. So
all right, can I stop you 1 second? You're really scratchy. Your mic's really scratchy. I don't know if it's the wire or.
Okay, let's try that. Maybe if I don't move as much, it won't go. How's that? A little bit better?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I'll just stay still for the next 20 minutes, which will be a difficult thing for me. But
it is. All right. So tell the story.
So at the event, they talked about having a vegan option for us, like 1,500 people. And I go, great. So when the wait person came around, I mentioned that, and they said, sure, that's fantastic. So all 1,200 people get fed, and I'm still not served yet. And obviously the person who was the wait person was very sad, very sorry about it, and came a few times. They're working on it. They'll get it to you shortly. Finally, they brought out a beautiful plate of food. I mean, it was a gorgeous plate of plant-based food. And the woman placed it in front of me. She goes, I'm really sorry. Want some scallops with that? I bit my lip not to say anything because she was being so nice. But that's the misinformation. That's the lack of information that's out there. Yet they were able to do it. And they were able to do it well. Now, why I was number 1,200 out of 1,200 people and they're getting fed, somebody has to be, right? But the scallop story, it'll live in infamy. Yeah. We left. You were there at the event.
And you texted me and like, hello. And then Tyra texted me something about her meal because she's allergic to shellfish. And yeah.
It's so funny when that happens in a way, and it's sad. But I find that it's improved, or it had been improving. Yet you gotta just have communication, and you have to not, as you said, you have to not be bullied by people saying, "Well, you have to eat this way," or "This is what we're doing." This is how I eat. It works not only for me, it probably will work for you, but I'm not even going to get into that. But respect that the same way you respect somebody who's eating with another illness or another approach that really maintains their healthy lifestyle. I'm all in on the plant-based, and I know how useful and how healthy it is. But at the same time, no matter what your issue is, we want to be inclusive regarding food in our industry.
So Debbie Nina I had that Nina up there real quick. It said, instead of buffet, we can build your own layers so that conference members can take and leave them as fit. And Nina, that I love that concept as well. It will have to be, during COVID times served that way. And my friend Murray Hall, he's a chef up in Toronto. Jim, you'll love this. He's starting all of his menu designs plant-based as the core. And then when he's building it out, the protein for the vegan, he's starting out, actually, I should say plant-based and gluten-free. So, or vegan and gluten-free. And then he's adding the things on there, and that makes it easier, kind of like Nina's saying, that we can pick and choose, and makes it easier on the back of the house to manage that.
Yeah, and Nina's an amazing chef. I love her stuff, and I follow her on Facebook all the time. The thing that's really important to understand is that, for example, from my perspective, I don't want gluten-free because wheat's an important part of where we're going to get a lot of our macronutrients anyway. But designing it to start there is great, because then you can sort of make it a la carte, add on. I just don't know regarding buffets when that's going to come back. Once our industry starts to come back, and bets for me is later part of this year is probably the earliest that might start happening. I still don't think we'd be comfortable with a buffet in a room. I think it's going to be plated, and we're going to need to make sure that that plating has a lot of health applications and levels on there to make it work.
Debbie, your question of are you including whole food plant-based menus with your conventions? Wholeheartedly. That's where we should start with it and having the conversation. But it's really hard to do when you get a catering menu, a standard, here's the standard catering menu, pick what you want. Nothing is labeled to know that if it's plant-based or not. And, it's a standard American diet, and it's not looking at the plant forward mentality, which is what Chef Hall says too, is plant forward. Yeah. And you're relying on those chefs. And I had a chef back in, it was a year ago. I'm like, I want a chicken dish, and this is not plant-based, but a chicken dish and a meat dish without MSG, tomatoes, gluten. And he's like, he looks at me, he goes, what do you want me to make? I'm like, you're the executive chef of a convention center. What do you mean? What do you want me to make? And the vegan options were not the healthiest. And they're like, you want us to eat on the buffet? Yeah.
But that's not what they're learning in culinary school.
No, they're not.
They're learning the core is butter. The core is going to be the protein. It means you can get into the whole dietary restrictions conversation, and the fact that protein, assumed to be meat, although it shouldn't be, is part of a plate. I mean, I've just been reading in the T. Colin Campbell nutrition course I'm taking, what the real protein requirements are for a human being. It's 10%, which means you're getting it from a whole food plant-based. And the problem is where that excess protein goes. It primarily goes to your liver. It gets stored as fat. So unless you want to become foie gras, you're in a situation where you're damaging your liver by having this excessive protein mentality. Core 8 to 10% of your calories should be from protein. The real question, and every one of the smart doctors I know talks about this, isn't where you get your protein, because nobody's protein deficient. It's where do you get your fiber, because 97% of this country is fiber deficient. And the issue there. Oh my gosh.
Regularly, yeah.
Absolutely. There's a Dr. Bulsiewicz, a great gastroenterologist, has this funny show that I saw. It said, eat whole plants, take epic dumps, talking about getting stuff through your body. But the bottom line is, without fiber, there's so many issues of gut microbiome that really gets negatively affected. So you could actually make the case, and this is really a developing science right now, that part, the gut microbiome, is where it's all at. And when you start reading that, you go, okay, all the stuff is about the plants supporting it and the bacteria that's in there, and other products not doing so. It's truly a remarkable space and time to be in the space because of the change and the science that's out there. Yeah.
And Nina, thank you for helping me say your name correctly. I mean, the nutrition side of our bodies is actually really relatively new, and it's really hard to study because everybody's body is different. And they're going to react to something, a different way or whatever. And so it does make planning menus very hard. The event that I talked about from last year, we had 600 attendees and we had 200 of them with dietary needs. You'll be happy to know that 100 of those were vegan or vegetarian based. But that's a good thing, but it really is kind of challenging for some.
If we had lots of time, Tracy, and this might be an offline conversation, I'd sort of challenge all bodies are different. I think the reality is all bodies are more similar than different, and that people start to think that I have to eat a certain way because of my body type. There was that book 20
Right.
years ago about eating your blood type, proven to be nonsense after a number of years. The bottom line is listen to your body and understand what it is and what's wrong. Consult with the medical folks that are out there. Yet at the same time, realize that you don't need XYZ because some commercial sold it to you as a bill of goods that's out there. And again, I go back in our industry to the training of the chefs. It's, the same way that doctors don't get nutrition training, that the people who are in the culinary arts really don't get anything other than a butter-based, animal protein-based training. So they have to now unlearn and relearn. That's difficult in any field, although it's critical. So we have to be out there at the forefront, helping out as much as we can, saying, look, why don't you try using these ingredients, avoiding this, and see what you can come up with. And don't forget that I want it to taste good as well. Don't just give me some lettuce on a plate and say, there's your vegan dish, or there's your whole food plant-based dish. That doesn't work for us. We want healthy food. Again, Chef Nina does raw food, which is amazing. There are other people out there who are doing great stuff all across the country. It's a matter of just extending that knowledge out, and making sure that people understand that if you want to eat meat, you want to eat fish, do it. Great. But there are people who don't. Make sure that they have the same culinary experience. Make sure they get that same enjoyment, because it is about community. It's about family. It's about all the stuff that we grew up with. We're not throwing that out. We want that to be the case.
Well, and now I'm forgetting who said this, but food should be. We all have to eat, and we all must eat, but it should be made with love. And when you're the chef, or you're the line cook or whatever, the time that you spend, putting that love into the food, we should appreciate that as the person doing that, but consuming that and sharing that experience. And so we want to make sure that whole experience is made with love and respect and tradition in some sorts. But the culinary team, it seems a lot of the times when you get boring chicken dishes, that's not made with love. That's just made with, I got to watch my budget, and this is all I got, and I don't want to be creative with it. And that's unfortunate.
We can trade off love and respect for healthy ingredients, because you can, right now, that's what I want. Everyone cooks with love. We're in this because we love to do what we do, and the chefs are in this because they love to do what they do. But what I want you to do is focus on what's going to keep people healthy, keep them alert and focused successfully during the conference. Make sure that they don't have any issues down the road, with their health. But you got to give people what they want. So there is a balance there. Just don't throw us to you want scallops with that conversation. That's just it's not working, right?
No. Okay. So I wanted to get one of the other big parts of, food at events is the waste. And because we don't want those chafing dishes to go empty, and we don't want anybody to go hungry. We want to make sure that there's plenty of food there for everybody. And so we have an excess of orders, excess amount of food. So there's some terminology around there, food recovery or reducing food waste, or, the best of it, to be honest with you, is to not have recovery, not have to recover it because you've actually ordered the right amount up front, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Not going to happen in our industry at all. It's impossible, the ordering thing, because you never know how many people are going to show up in this and that. Right. But the food recovery is, again, another epic fail on our industry, because 23 years ago, the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act was passed by both houses of Congress to say that it is okay to donate any leftover food, prepared but not served, is how we at Rock and Wrap It Up interpret that, and donate it to organizations, people that can feed those in need that night. The conversations that when I was a planner that I would have with catering, saying that, well, we can't do it, our lawyers said that we can get sued, is baloney. A, nobody's ever gotten sued for donating, and B, nobody will, because you're protected by the law. So what do? You find an organization. Now, I've been for 20 years working with Rock and Wrap It Up to actually work on that approach. And, I do such small amount compared to the amazing stuff that Sid Mandelbaum does, throughout the country. But we are trying to get people aware that if you have excess food, well, coordinate with us or someone who can help out, find a local shelter that can serve it that night, and get the food out there and get the food moved. I got a stat for you that's amazing, because we're not doing a lot in the meetings industry right now because there are no meetings. But do you know that in 2020 that we have recovered nearly, and get this number is staggering, 1 million pounds of food, and have redirected ourselves to organizations that can feed people that day. Primarily, it's happened through a number of big food chains that have been incredible. It also blows your mind how much waste they have, plus the film industry, plus even sporting events. And you go, well, how are you getting food from there? Well, they pre-ordered so much stuff they were expecting to use, and guess what? All of a sudden they can't use it, but they know to reach out. They know to reach out to an organization such as ours. And we do this for organizations, again, for almost 30 years now. So the bottom line is our industry has to wrap their head around this, that it's okay to donate. It's okay to overorder if you have to, because you want to make sure there's plenty. That's part of the food meme that's out there. You don't want to be short in terms of the food, because people take it as sort of an assault to who we are as a community. Yet at the same time, when there is overage, make sure it goes to people who don't have a meal. Almost 40% of the people in this country don't know where the next meal comes from. So why don't we as an industry take that upon ourselves to really help that incredibly? And once we do bounce back, this will be another platform that has to be focused on by you, by me, by so many folks. The folks at Meet Green have done a great job for years and years with sustainability and with all of the green issues at conferences. Let's make food become one of those. Just not only that, but the fact that now it's not being wasted. Now it's not going to landfill. And at the same time, now it's going to the stomachs of people who don't know where the next meal comes from.
Well, and that reminds me of another, statistics. The number of people who are having a hard time putting food on their table now because of the COVID is even greater. So, and to me, the biggest thing besides the number of infections and getting vaccinations, the number thing that COVID has put a light on is our food system.
Yeah.
And the lack of ability to get, food to the people who need it. And Aiden, in California, started the, oh my gosh, Aiden, you're going to kill me that I forgot the name of your company. But 2 college kids saw the food being wasted on farms and connected the farmers directly to the food banks. And I'm going to have to go look that up really quickly.
Oh, you're looking that up. One thing to mention, on the website, rockandwrapitup.org, we have food calculators, sustainability calculators. So people can actually plug in the pounds of food that are being recovered and understand, based on EPA and USDA formulas, how many meals that's going to serve, how much CO2e will not go into landfill because of that, and how much water sustainability, how much water savings. The bottom line at this point is for us to understand that there's so much excess food in our industry. And Debbie, thank you for mentioning about Rock and Wrap It Up being awesome. Debbie Gedeke with Discover Albany has done amazing work up there, sharing this with their incoming clients. And again, she's talked about educating human resources, the chef, the sales department. But we found a couple of places that can accommodate, can use the food that night, that day. And all it takes at that point is just, 1 call, 1-2 calls, and the food gets there. You just feel so much better about it. Food's such an integral part of what we do in our industry. There's so many ways to be more aware, to be more healthy, and to be more, really respectful of the planet, as well as helping others.
Yes. And 100% agree with you. And just so I'm not remiss, Aiden's organization is called Farm Link Project.
Okay.
And 2 college kids just watched the news and decided to do this. And now it is a national campaign.
Here.
Really, really awesome. And Eric was a guest a couple of months ago as well from Meet Green. It is the, understanding, I'm going to tie in dietary needs as well to the food recovery, but understanding the dietary needs of your guests can help eliminate some of your excess food as well, paying attention to it. So you're not going to serving Jim the scallops when he's not going to eat them, right? And because those scallops now have to be thrown away. But I want to go back to something too that you said when you first started is prepared but not served. So it's all the food in the back of the house.
That's our thing. I know there are people who will say, "Well, bring it all," but being led by someone who has such a background in science and genetics, Sid understands that we're dealing with people who have compromised immune systems. So we want to make sure that what is being brought, even though we're not going to get sued for it, is as good as possible in terms of healthy and untainted, especially in the post-COVID times, but even pre-COVID. So we focus on prepared but not served. And I think that way it might even be more acceptable to a lot of planners to understand, oh, okay, it's not going to be stuff that was put on somebody's plate. They might have pushed it. No, this is the stuff that never leaves the kitchen. The 3 to 5% that we know is the safety valve of over ordering. Even though they're trying to cut costs and control costs, you don't want to run out of food. I remember, I'm sure you feel the same way as a planner. The most difficult part of our job was getting the guarantees right. It was always an exercise in guessing at best.
Yeah. Well, and Nina, yes, she has the question, can this be part of the planner's incorporated in advanced planning of the events? Yes, we want to have that happen. And Jim, as you know, the other story that I have of you is one of the organizations that one of your clients with Rock and Wrap It Up, had put it in the contract with the venue, and it was coming like 3 weeks out and 2 weeks out. And the CSM or whoever it was is like, just don't make me do this.
Yeah, that line resonates in my head, for years now, that we were told after they said they would do it, they literally backed out. And we don't know what pressure they were getting internally, but the catering person said to our contact, please don't make me do this. The follow-up of the story is that one of the meals we were going to be picking up, they had like 600 no-shows, and the planner went back of the house and saw all these meals just sitting out waiting to come out, and he was furious as well. Now, I'm never going to mention what facility this was, but I gotta tell you, it makes an indelible mark when you see stuff like that, and you know that all that food's going to get thrown away. Now, if the property says we're going to feed our staff with it, cool, I get it, do that. But don't say that you can feed your staff, but we can't donate it because somebody might get sick. Well, if that's the case, then why are you feeding your staff? Because they could get sick. So get feeding your staff. But if you're not going to do that, or if you want to do something that gives you extra bonus points for being a good humanitarian, why don't you donate it to people who don't know where that meal is coming from? Either way, it's a win. But throwing it away, that's the loss. Well,
and it just reminds me of the corporate social responsibility. Everybody is wanting to find ways. And so you're doing the soap donations, you're doing, giving clothing donations, whatever you're doing, you're having people bring it. Food is that donation as well. So that should actually automatically be part of your CSM campaign going forward. And with everything else that you're doing, that's just one thing that you can communicate to your attendees that you're doing without them actually having to do anything, right?
Except feel good about it.
Exactly.
Feel good. Yeah, and some of the stuff that we've done in the past, and think about, not food in a hotel, but all those little small shampoos and conditioners that get thrown out all the time. I know from time to time we have collected and we have donated those to organizations that need that. There's so much that's out there. So hopefully the food can begin a trigger of all the other sustainability tools and approaches that are out there that the planners can think about without having to spend a lot of time on. Just find that right organization and tie it in and be the champion.
Yep. And Debbie said, as the CSM, it's her responsibility to manage that. And I commend you for being that CSM that has already, and that property that is already doing that, because there's so many out there that don't do it. So just keep touting the words and helping us out, Debbie. Thank you.
Hey, Trace, doesn't it all come down to education when we think about it? That the more we educate 100%. The industry,
Yep, it really does.
I think that's where we need to be. You're out in the forefront. I commend you so much for all the stuff that you do. But everyone, all of us, the more we can do little bits to help people understand all these areas that we can do better on without affecting negatively our bottom line and positively affecting the planet and people. Just where we need to go.
It can be the 3 Ps. It can do people, planet, and profit. It can all work congruently together to help us all. So
hope so.
Yeah, cross our fingers, work toward, we're going to keep fighting the fight. What does a safe and inclusive food and beverage experience mean to you?
Well, it clearly means safe and inclusive in terms of safety for the individual who's consuming, making sure they get what they need to have a healthy life and not get sick from the event, but also safe and inclusive and sustainable from the planet's basis to be able to use as few resources as possible. Part of the issue in terms of water usage, and, I'm whole food plant-based, and we know that the use of water to raise livestock, to raise most animal products is tremendously more. So anything we can do to offset the damage to the planet and improve the health of the attendees is what it means. And it can look in a lot of different ways. And I'm really hoping in this decade, as we get past where we are right now, that we're going to find unique approaches and really amazing ways of making that happen from people that we haven't even talked to about this yet. So I'm really stoked about all the people who are out there who are going to be able to make a difference to do this as we move forward.
Yeah. And I think now, we've got a downtime, and I don't mean that, it's not necessarily a nice downtime that we have, but when we have the downtime, we need to be focusing on that and saying, hey, what can we do with our processes? Looking at your SOPs now, or doing what Debbie's doing, and find those partners now while the need is, the need is there for donations. But while you're not super busy and you don't have the time to figure out those contracts and those partnerships, do that now so that when you come back, it's all there.
It's all in place and ready to go. Again,
exactly.
these approaches should be pretty automatic once they're in place. And once they're automatic, you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay. So the final question that I have to ask you is, what is your favorite food and beverage? And I just love your answers. So I want
addicted to okra, pickled okra at this point. It's been, there's a great farmers market where we are in Queens, and started, having a little bit more pickled stuff, and, keeping it at a minimum, and pickled okra. So good. I was a gumbo fan in pre whole food plant-based days. I'm a gumbo fan now, making it with a proper roux that is whole food plant-based, that's no oil, or minimal oil, I should say, on that one. But the bottom line is the pickled okra. Okra is, to me, mandatory for gumbo. Boy, I can strike up a huge conversation and argument on that statement alone. But the pickle part of it, that's it. I think you share that obsession these days.
Yes. There's a farmer's market store like 30 miles away, and I found it there, pickled garlic or pickled okra. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. So we got it there. And then I went to Whole Foods, and Whole Foods was doing it. And then now actually at the grocery store, you can get it with like the dill pickles. There's pickled okra in the grocery store. And I'm like, my dad and I are just like eating it up. But my other thing pickled right now too is garlic. Yeah. The farmer's market down in Moorhead has that too. My mother's like, please stay away from me when you eat it. But it doesn't taste, it doesn't have the staunch.
Pickled mushrooms, pickle this, pickle that. My wife actually does a quick pickle of watermelon rinds. That's amazing. And when we make our vegan sushi, then we will sometimes do the pickled watermelon rinds as that replacement for the pickled ginger. So shout out to my wife and her amazing creativity.
Hi,
and yes,
Mara.
Jeannie,
Thank you.
And Jeannie, you'll get the gumbo recipe. I will send it to you. Not a problem.
And I want that gumbo recipe too. Yes.
You got it.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim, so much.
Oh my gosh. Tracy, thank you for having me. And thanks to your audience for being focused on the importance of food in our industry. It really is a critical one.
Yes. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. And we will see you next time. And Karen said, can you please share the gumbo recipe with all of us?
Okay. I'll get it out to you, Tracy. You can share with everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And If you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.